Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Lost Sheep Podcast. I'm Nazario Pangallo.
And I'm Cole Bissett.
And we are back for episode 28. And I'm not going to lie, Cole, I thought we weren't going to get it in. I thought we were going to fail for the second time to not get an episode when we doubled back and promised that that was going to be the final time that we missed. And we were very close to missing it. This episode will be coming out in around 4 hours. And we were recording 4 hours before airtime. So look at us, figuring it out, making it work. This morning, I went to church. Cole has not yet, but we figured out some time on this beautiful Sunday morning to get a podcast in, most importantly. Cole sent me a good old quote that we're going to dive into. Not quite yet, but we're going to dive into that very simple. Cole, how was your week, sir? We started intramurals. They're back. And then other fun stuff such as your delightful school. How you feeling?
Feeling pretty good. Intramurals were fun. We had a really tough co-rec game this year. Co-rec volleyball. Nazario and I, pretty competitive, so I had to leave actually when we went into overtime and they lost the game, so that was really depressing to hear. But started back up, got to kick into full gear. We are going to be starting soccer in less than a month now, I think. And then football is starting up as well. And yeah, school's been doing pretty good, I guess. Some of the classes are quite boring, but others are really challenging, and so it's just all about dedication and staying and sticking to it. So that's exciting. And we also have search coming up, which we have a search team member actually present in the room with us, funny enough. But yeah, search is coming up, and so that's exciting. And we're excited to do that. So here you go.
We also started our Bible studies this week. We both led our first Bible study. They both went pretty well. Cole did you have 5 people there or 6? Cole had 6. For his, I had 3. So 9 people so far that have been in our Bible studies that we're able to impact, and ourselves as well being impacted by them. So some very, very cool stuff. So intramural starting, Bible study starting. The semester really starting to get in turn, machines starting to crank, the engine starting to roll, and before you know it, it'll be Christmas time, and we'll be decorating the house. Gil will be that's the guy over there that you guys can't see, but he's one of our roommates. He's not the greatest huge Christmas fan ever, but Cole and I, we are massive Christmas fans, obviously, when we're talking about the holiday in September, so that's pretty wild. Yeah. But that's how we roll. And we're gonna have a nice Christmas decoration for our set for you guys when we get ready. We'll probably do that in honestly probably after Halloween, because that's how much we love Christmas.
So I was telling him, I've been sending him Christmas reels and Christmas pictures. Caroline and I were at the store yesterday, and I saw Christmas stuff, and I'm like, dude, this makes me want to drop a load of cash right now. It's bad. But my grandmother recently told us that she was gonna give us her 6-foot Christmas tree. And so we will now, I don't know if I have told Gil this, but we will have a Christmas tree in our house probably by early November. So yeah, we're going to start decorating pretty early on and get it going, because why not celebrate early? So, yeah.
Awesome. So, yeah, that's it for the intro. We don't seem to have a ton of intro stuff to do, so that's okay. We're going to hop in to our quote. We don't want you guys to just have to listen to us ramble about our lives, so we'd rather dive into the spiritual aspect of this episode. So as I said, Cole sent me this quote just a few moments ago, about an hour ago, honestly. And I was like, oh, I guess we're doing the podcast this morning. So this quote is from a great poet, a great playwright, from I don't know which century, somewhere around the 1500s. Is that correct?
Let me research that for you.
Sometime after the Middle Ages, but before the current moments.
Hold on.
Cole's research is going a little bit slow. The one, the only, William Shakespeare is where our quote will be from today. Trying to talk as slow as possible to give Cole as much time as possible. He lived from 1589 to 1613. Is that correct? Alrighty. So the 1500s to 1600s. The one and only William Shakespeare. Here is our quote for this week. Give every man thy ear, but few thy voice. I'll read that again. From William Shakespeare. Give every man thy ear, but few thy voice. Cole, you sent me this quote first. So that means you get to kick us off with the discussion.
I wish you had told me this before because I'm not 100% ready for this, but, let's go ahead. Give every man thy ear, but few thy voice. When we look back at the Bible and we look back at Jesus and the way he teaches, all that he asks for people is just to sit and listen and kind of just take in his words. And so you have these hundreds and thousands of people gathering around just to hear what he has to say, right? Because sometimes you don't have to talk. Sometimes it's important just to listen. That's a really big aspect of relationships, with friends, with families, with girlfriends, with husbands, with wives, all of that. I mean, it is the most important aspect. It's just the ability to listen. I'm going to cite James 1:19. It says, "My dear brothers, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry." I think when we talk about listening, we talk about speaking, one of the most important things is patience, right? You don't want to talk over somebody. You don't want to interrupt somebody. You don't want to speak too much. You want to be able to have the ability to listen. And that's really, 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 really important if you want to get anything out of somebody else's words, right? If you are so quick to speak, you are never going to get the wisdom from other people because you're not going to have the time to take notice of what other people have to say. I like to talk a lot. I admit that I do. But I also think I like to listen as well. And so that's why I listen to podcasts all the time. I listen to music all the time because I love to hear what other people have to say, because there's so much knowledge in the people around you that we can learn from each other and grow off of each other. And that is why it's so important in our relationship with God and our relationship with other people to allow your friends to talk and to allow yourself to listen to what they have to say so you can strengthen yourselves and align yourselves towards God.
Yeah, and going back to Jesus and how he lived and what he taught, I have two ideas. I'm going to dive into one. And when Jesus was around, yes, he had these incredible times where he would go out and speak to a ton of people. And yes, he was trying to give as many people his voice and his influence. But realistically, there were a lot of people that were there out of awe, out of wonder, but they weren't truly listening to what he had to say, and they weren't invested in everything that he had to say. But there were few who were keen and aware and in tune with every word that was coming out of Jesus' mouth, and that was his disciples. They were always there with him, following him, and listening to every word that he said. And so these are the people that Jesus was truly and fully giving his voice even more to, but also because those people were fully receiving his voice. And this kind of gives us an idea of how to lead and how to disciple and evangelize to other people. Yes, you can go out and you can speak to a ton of people and try to give your voice to many people. But if their ears are not open, if their hearts aren't inclined to actually want to listen, then your voice is just falling on deaf ears. So when it says, but give few thy voice, it means that our voice is not going to be received by a ton of people all the time. And it's important to know what people are truly receiving your voice so that you can invest more deeply into those relationships and into that teaching and that fostering of relationship with those people. And that's exactly what Jesus did. He dove as fully into his disciples as he possibly can. He only called those certain amount of people to truly follow him day in and day out. He didn't call everyone there to follow him as disciples. Of course, he would have loved if they did that, but he didn't go around to everyone saying, leave your life and follow me. Yes, he did teach that in different ways, but he only truly called the 12 disciples and the apostles that followed him to do that more deeply. And that is how we can invest in people and spread it in a more effective manner, is if we invest in a small amount of people, then they invest in a small amount of people, and they're able to give as much of their voice as they can to those few people, and those few people are listening, and then it keeps going and going and going. It gives us this great chance to really build off of each other, and we're all building off each other, and it's a smaller amount of people in one setting, but as it spreads infectiously, it can reach a huge amount of people and truly make an impact on those people because they're all invested in it, instead of trying to reach a huge amount of people at one time that aren't fully invested. So it's key to know who is truly listening so that you can give your voice selectively in the right way to the right people. So yeah, that's what I've got so far.
This may take a second, but I want to read an article. It's called The Art of Listening, and it's from the Catholic Apostolate Center. And it was just it's a really beautiful article that I found. It says, every interaction, every conversation, each and every dive into our relational natures as human beings begins with the willing openness to listen. Listening begins with a simple opening, a knock on the door of our self-focus that lets us know that someone else is here, present before us with a unique existence, one that should be experienced and embraced. Listening happens in almost everything we do in our daily lives, whether we are speaking with others, learning instructions, praying, or even sitting alone in the quiet of an empty house. There is always something to hear, always something to experience. To listen is to see the beauty and worth in another and embrace this by joining another in his or her own life's journey, whether they may be in whatever they are going through. I often say that listening is an art. We are all great artisans of speech one way or another, whether outspoken and personable or soft-spoken and shy. We'll all have an inner preacher within us that constantly narrates our thoughts, opinions, and daily lives. To speak is in our nature, and to listen is also a part of who we are. Speaking, however, often seems easier than listening. Children constantly have to be reminded to give each person his turn to speak. Exemplify this. Why is it hard to listen? I think the life of St. John Marie Vianney, whose feast we celebrated today, which this was in 2015, so I don't actually know Johnny Vianney's feast day, but whenever this was written, can show us some answers. Looking into his life, one can see just how important and powerful the art of listening is for all of us. Listening is something that can be appreciated in others and within ourselves in almost artistic way, such as when we read the great sonnets of Shakespeare. Funny enough, citing Shakespeare. Or admit Monet's water lilies. Listening has its own beauty within it all, as all things do. It is in itself a beautiful thing. St. John Vianney, I believe, knew the power that listening wields. As a priest in the farmlands of France, traveling around to spiritually devastated towns, he would plop himself down at confessional and just sit there, waiting. In time, townspeople started coming and speaking to him. He heard confessions for long lengths of time, listening to the needs of people of France. Slowly and surely, each town he visited began beaming with a light and a warmth that didn't exist before. Besides hearing the townspeople's confession, John Vianney validated and embraced their lives in his own, welcoming all and listening with an open heart. He embraced fully the priesthood as a way to listen to others, to join into the community of all, to embrace and see the worth in others, and to let others know that Christ sees their worth as well. He did this through devout prayer to God and a humble heart to listen to God's plan for him. It is by this profound listening that John Vianney became the well-known patron of priests that he is today. Yeah, funny enough, St. John Vianney actually does exemplify this quote in a lot of ways. But yeah, I really like that article because it doesn't just talk about listening it talks about how listening is important and all, but I think it highlights different aspects of it that I wouldn't have thought of, about confession in particular. A priest has to sit in a confessional all day, or during his time, and listen to the sins of others, and just listen and hear and understand and talk to them. I mean, that like, as a priest, that would be hard because you are constantly having to just listen, right? And so it's really cool, and I admire this of priests, that they're able to listen and talk back to you and give you advice, and you don't really feel judged. And that is one of the most important things I think about the priesthood that I respect so much. I think this quote, "Give every man thy ear, but few thy voice," also is a warning about vulnerability and trust. And I think it's telling you to be wary who you trust, but also to make sure that in the end you do trust the right person, right? Because it doesn't say few, it doesn't say know thy voice, it says few. So I think it's telling you find good friends, find the ones you trust, and then when you have these good friends, then you can be vulnerable with them. And that's what I think it could also be saying.
Dang, I hadn't thought about that aspect, but give me a knock on that. That was a good one. I like that aspect of it. And I could totally go into that more, but you already hit it. So I'm going to let you sit with that one. But in my one class is called Art for Life's Sake, which, if you know me, you would not have expected me to like this class when I first entered it. It is an honors requirement, so I have to take it. And one of the big aspects of it that our teacher's trying to help us to understand is mindfulness. And if you don't know what mindfulness is, it basically is the art of being able to just listen, which is kind of wild. And we kind of just have started randomly during class for like 5 minutes. He'll just tell us to sit there, to close our eyes, and to just listen to the sounds that are happening throughout the classroom. And everyone else is just doing the same thing. So there's no really voices going on, no one's really talking. It's just, you're just listening. And I've tried to incorporate this into the variety of things that are going on in my life. And you can do this whenever you're watching television, whenever you're just outside and nothing's going on. There's so many ways that you can practice this. And it's just to focus on the sound, just to focus on whatever's coming in to your ear. And it's not about trying to listen to this thing and learn some crazy meaning for it. Like if we're listening to someone talk, we're like, oh, how do we decipher this and judge this in a certain way? It's not about that. It's simply just about listening to it and just hearing it. And that's it. That's as simple as that. And it just teaches you how to just clear your mind out and to just really be in that moment and listen. But I'm going to go back to what you said about the vulnerability aspect. And I agree with the thing about talking, but I want to dive deeper into the thing about listening, and that we should always be open to allowing others to be vulnerable with us, with what they're trying to tell us, and to always have a heart that is out there so that people want to talk to us and they want to be open to us, and we're easy to talk to because people have so many things that are just hidden inside of them, that are just bottled up inside of them, that need to be let out. And there's a lot of fear to speak and to allow everything that's inside of you to come out. And that's why people have to be more open to listening. People are so judgmental or just not wanting to listen, wanting to get their own voice and opinion in there. But we all desire to express what's inside of us, whether it's feelings, opinions, just hurt, happiness, whatever it may be. People always want to express that, and a huge way to express it is through words. And when your voice gets shut down, people shut down, and they just continue to hide more and more things inside of them. So if we can open ourselves up to allow people to want to talk and to foster this relationship where, hey, I feel great to talk to this person about whatever, it's going to create just a better relationship and a better life, because you're just going to be more connected to that person because that trust is there. And those conversations that you have with each other, you're expressing true self, and that's what we're truly called to. So, yeah. Do you have anything else on the quote for at the moment? All right, so that's it for first segment of the quote. We'll probably just do a little bit of a conclusion, but those are some of the things that we've got from William Shakespeare's quote of "Give every man thy ear, but few thy voice." So, Cole, if you could hit the transition button on the computer. Dun, 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 dun. And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Practical Prayer Practices. So, last week, we asked you guys for your practical prayer practice to figure out something that you need to prune out of your life. And that could be something that is as bad as a sin that's been habitual that you need to cut out. It could be just something that's taking away time that you want to kind of remove as much time you're investing in it because it's not as fruitful as you hoped, or something in that vein, but something that you could try to prune that will help you and grow your path and lead you more towards Christ. So I'm going to dive into mine first, and my prune is this get it done to get it done mindset that I don't know how long I've had it, but it's been a little bit of an issue that I've started to realize, and I've really tried to get it out. And I want to do things, but I can see myself and sense in myself when these things are going on that I'm trying to get it done and get it done as soon as possible just to get it done and not to be satisfied with actually doing it, not enjoying it for what it is. And so, yeah, that is my prune. And honestly, I feel like it's gone pretty well. The first highlight that comes into my mind is like 2 weeks ago or some other time, Cole and I have gone to play disc golf a good amount. And I could see myself, like checking to see what hole we're on, knowing how much time has been on, like, oh, I want to get this done to get it done. And then we went on Friday, 2 days ago. And one thing I told Cole was like, don't tell me my score, which was a part of this as well. But also I didn't check my watch. I didn't bring my phone so that I wouldn't look at my phone to see what time it is. I was trying to stay away from what hole we were on to not know how many holes are left, because that is part of the mindset of like, oh, there's only 3 holes left. Like, we're only 3 holes from being done. Instead, it was more just enjoying each throw that we had, enjoying each time we made a putt, whatever it may be. And then I didn't want to know my score because I didn't want to have that just, oh, I got to end with this or that, but just enjoying each moment of it. And I thought it was much better. Cole, I'm actually going to ask you a question. Could you see in myself during that disc golf experience any difference in me during that? If you didn't, that's okay. I'm just curious.
Funny enough, I actually think you threw better. I don't know if that would affect like what your thoughts are doing, but I think it did. You threw a lot better, more consistent. Yeah, that's pretty much it. But yeah, you threw a lot better that day. Your score may not have reflected it, but like your drives were really good. So. Oh yeah, sorry, my prune. Last week I spent the entirety of the week. Normally when I am done class, I come back here and I want to do work, and I end up sitting on my phone for like 30 minutes to an hour. So my prune was when I got home last week was to find something else to do instead of sitting on my phone. And so one day I worked out, one day I did a puzzle, just something to stay off my phone for that time, because it's just laziness, and I might as well, because I need the break from school, so I don't want to come home and go right into schoolwork. And so I just found something to do besides scrolling. And yeah, it was really nice, peaceful. But yeah, that's my practical prayer practice prune. 4 P's this week. But yeah, and do you want to intro the ad?
All right, so we're going to introduce our next practical prayer practice, and this one is add. So last week we talked about, and just right now, just cutting something out, pruning it, removing it. Now we're going to talk about a more positive note, and that is to add something to your life that is good and that will lead to growth as well. And this could go all the way from adding a 15-minute period in your day where you know you're going to go to prayer. This could go as simple as just adding another meal to your day because you know you need to nourish your body better. This could be all a variety of things, and it's all in the sphere of adding. So adding something good. We are not going to talk about our ads right now because that's for next week. But I would like to say that what I just talked about with get it done mindset, I can still feel it in the back of my head, even during this episode, of wanting to look at the clock down there to see how long the episode's been going and to see like, oh, we're almost see, it always comes back. You have to keep on working at it. And yeah, so I'm just trying to give you guys a little insight into mine. It's a tough thing. And if you guys go through it, I completely understand, but it is a great thing to get out of your life. And my ad next week that I will talk about goes into how another way to try to prune while adding something better along with it. So, Cole, if you could hit the transition button once again. Done. The shepherd of the week. And Cole, I do practical prayer practice. So you, sir, can introduce our shepherd of the week.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this shepherd of the week we kind of did because he was having a struggling, period of his life at the moment. Buddy of ours, who again is in the room, gave us this idea, and he's currently smirking because he knows he's gonna have to try really hard not to laugh. But this NFL player really is kind of had a rough go about it in his NFL career. Even in his college career, towards the end of his career, he really struggled with injury. And recently, while it has been different injuries in the NFL, concussions have kind of taken over his career. And so he's not been able to succeed on a higher level like other players because he hasn't had the chance nor ability to. Last year was his first year, I think, playing without a single injury. And so we want to talk about Tua Tagovailoa today. Wonderful, wonderful Christian. He is one of the actually one of the NFL players who's like, I make it happen that I can get to mass on Sunday or Saturday. He's like, whatever it is, I will get there. He said, I hate that the NFL is on Sunday. Like, it is the worst thing. You can hear him complain about it in several interviews that he talks about. I think how he somehow makes it happen, whether it's with a private priest, private mass, or something like that. But he gets to church and he's like, it's hard. I pray as much as I can to kind of foster that relationship with God because it makes me feel awful that I do miss it sometimes on Sundays. But I think he does a wonderful job in leading the Dolphins. He may not be the greatest quarterback of all time for the NFL, but he does a decent job, and I think he leads the team on a higher level than you do see most quarterbacks. And while I do not support his decision to come play again, because I think it's life-threatening for him, honestly, at this point. He's had, 4 or 5 now? 4? Yeah, he's had 4. So his brain is really susceptible to injuries, and he likes to run on occasion. And so sometimes it just bites him in the butt. And so, just keep him in your prayers. He's a great role model, great athlete. We love to see him on the field. It really hurts for us to watch him get hurt.
Yeah, and it's really hard to see someone who he really loves the game. We talked about his injuries in college and in the NFL. He's had concussions, he's had hip surgery, ankle. Like, he just had so many things, but his love for the game has just pushed him to keep going and going. And one aspect of it that I'm not sure he's ever spoken about as this for some of his reasoning, but it could be a part of it, is that he is using his NFL stage, his influence, to really try to spread the love of God, whether it's in interviews, answering questions, whether it's with the money that he makes, or just going out and doing things in the community. Being an NFL quarterback for him has been a great platform for him to spread, and I'm sure that aspect is hard for him too. Like, what if he gets out of the NFL and then his influence, his platform is gone, and he's not able to impact people the way that he had been while he's in the game? So that could also go into his decision as well. But to just see him continue to persevere, even beyond the greatest judgment of a good amount of us, it's inspiring to see, because he just keeps going and going and going. But we hope for his sake that if he does continue to play and he's cleared to play, that it works out for him, because he's just a human being. You don't want to see that happen to anyone. But he has a wife, he has 2 kids, and he's not even 30 years old yet. So such a long life that he has potentially to live, and we want to see that hopefully be a fruitful, well-lived life. And so if you could keep him in your prayers, as Cole said. But he's our shepherd of the week for his inspiration, his perseverance, and just ability to battle through the struggles. And as Father Magaga talked about in his homily today, he just carries his cross with incredible just manliness, honestly. Just a grind of get it through and carry that cross lovingly and for Christ. And that's exactly what Tua Tagovailoa does. And he's our shepherd of the week. Alrighty, we are going to switch on to our conclusion of our quote today. I'll read the quote one more time, give my final thoughts, and pass it over to Mr. Bissett. From William Shakespeare, "Give every man thy ear, but few thy voice." Jesus, our Lord and Savior, was one of the best listeners there could be. He would walk through whatever city he may be, and there would be times when people would call out to him, and what would he do? He would not just ignore them. He would not just walk on. He would listen to them, and he would come to them. And what would he do? Most of the time, he would heal them. He would do some incredible miracle, because that's what he can do. But he was always there to listen to them, listen to their cries, and listen to what they needed. And he tried his best. And obviously, his best is quite a bit better than ours. But he was able to give himself and give those people something incredible. He is our role model. We can learn to listen just like Jesus, and we can learn to give ourselves like Jesus did. We may or may not be able to heal the blind, or can't think of it. Give to the deaf people, give them a voice. What is that? Can't think of it. Jesus could make deaf people hear. I don't know how you would term that. Give sight to the blind, and there's something else. I don't know. But We might not be able to do all of that, but we can still love people, we can still listen to people, and we can make them feel heard. And that is why we should give every man thy ear.
I want to talk about one final way you can take this quote. Giving every man thy ear, but few thy voice. If we look at our relationship with God, God kind of redefines this quote for himself because God is everyone's best friend. So he gives everybody his ear and he also gives everybody his voice. And so we could redefine it for God's relationship with us, but in our relationship with God, he is one of those few that you can give your voice. He's somebody you can talk to. He's somebody that is your friend. He's somebody that's going to listen to you. And he's also going to talk to you too. And you need to learn how to open up your ears to listen to him. Now, how do you do that? You have to be open to receiving him. You got to be open to allowing him into your soul. You got to be open to that because in order for you to listen and understand God, you first have to reach out and try to make that connection with him too, because God's reaching out constantly, right? You just have to accept it. And in order to accept it, you got to be vulnerable and you got to reach out to him too. And so to close it out, give God your ears, give God your voice, give God everything, give God both, because God is one of those people you can be vulnerable with, and he's one of those people that you should listen to. So, do you got anything else? All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Lost Sheep Podcast. We will be back with you next week. We did make it quite close this week. For some reason, I forget during the week that we have to record, and so the weekend rolls around, and then we end up in trouble. So we will be back next week. But yeah, thank you guys so much for listening. God bless.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Lost Sheep Podcast. I'm Nazario Pangallo here with
Cole Bissett.